Content warning. The following show contains smoking, potty mouth language, discussions of fictitious violence, a whole lot of inconvenient truths, and of course, this is my favorite one, everyone, content that should be experienced by just about everyone. Yeah, I think that's about it. So, given that being the case, viewer discretion is relatively advised. You are so funny. Yeah, but looks ain't everything. Facts? Yeah, absolute facts. You should start the music. Yeah, I will. All right. Ooh. Hey everybody, what is going on today? I am Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, coming at you from the Wizard's Tower. And yeah, man, love it, love it, love it. Sorry that I'm late, everybody. It's just a thing. As soon as I was getting ready to put up the countdown little thing that says the show is going to start in this much time, I'm like, all right, show's going to start in this much time. And then for no reason whatsoever, my computer started going just bunches of L's. I thought it was my keyboard, right? I pulled out my keyboard and it was still and I'm like, oh, well, what is rule number 1 in tech support? Did you turn it off and on again? So I had to turn it off and on again and do a bunch of troubleshooting and all that stuff. And you know what? I am not a computer tech. And in truth, I don't like very many of them. So I just did the thing and here we are. So let's start the music again. There we go. As I get another cup of coffee prepped out. All right. And welcome, guys, to the dark side of the room. Now, this is the show where we talk about gaming and life and a whole bunch of other stuff. Now, let me let you guys know the way it goes. I have a total ritual because I'm really big on my routines and all that stuff. And the ritual in and of itself comes down to I put up the countdown thing, so I give myself a little bit, like an hour or so, to make sure that I have all my notes in order and all that jazz. And then I put out the announcement and I share the announcement on all the social medias, being TikTok and Facebook and all that stuff. And I send invitations, or I send the announcements to specific people out there on the internet, all in all. But then when my computer messed up, I'm like, and it's taking me this long to fix the problem. So we're running a little bit behind today, and I'm a little discombobulated because I had to deviate from my plan, but that's okay. That is actually okay. So here I am. This is what I'm doing. I'm actually sharing the post right now to a bunch of people, to let them know that I'm going live and where we are and what we're doing, and then we can get back to doing this show, because this is a question that has come up a whole lot to me in a lot of places. But restart the music, because we're not starting the show. Thank you. All right. So yeah, we're just going to be doing all of that jazz. So now that I've been sending out all that stuff, if you guys want to get a hold of me and all that jazz, avast. Do you know avast actually means hold it right there or stop? Fun fact, I actually learned that when I was dating a pirate. God, it's been like 15, 16 years. So that's fun. Where was I? Oh yes. If you guys want to get a hold of me, you can find me at backinthedeck@gmail.com. That's BACKINTHEDECK at gmail.com. You can also use that same address to hit me up in places like Instagram, Twitter, or Twitter XXXXX, and all that jazz. Now, if you guys are like me and you're still on that Facebook thing, because there's so many different social medias, it is just the last thing that you want to deal with on a regular basis. It's totally easy, it's totally fine, it's totally fun. Then just join the group Deckers on the Book. All right, that is what we're doing. And we're getting into that. I've now successfully shared this, so hopefully there'll be a lot more people coming in. So, with all that jazz, now, howdy. Yes, it's like a vast. I used to do that a lot when I was 6. My kid used to do the same thing. They would be like, "Daddy!" And I'm like, "What?" And they'd be like, "Hey!" And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, that's you. No paternity test needed. I know you're mine," because, that's the thing. But anyway. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you, Xanathes, for posting the Discord invitation. Major shout outs to all you guys here watching on Twitch, all you guys that are watching us on YouTube, and from the future, I'm actually saying just a little bit, just talking a little tiny bit, to let some people meander in and all that stuff. All right. But with all that being said, now the music fades. All right, so now that we're here and we're doing the whole thing, okay, I get where you guys are coming from. I get where there's a lot. But I got a question from one of our most dedicated deckers, okay? They slid into my DMs, and it wasn't like a pretty lady that was going, "Hi, I think you are very cool, and I live in the Southern California area. Would you like to get together and have some coffee?" And I don't mean like, I just mean like, man, you drink like a pot of coffee every night on air, and would you like to drink coffee with me sometime? Because I drink a lot of coffee, and that would be awesome and amazing. But that's not the slide in on the DM that came. What came in was, I've never GM before, and I have been asked to GM some of my players, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do a show on that on Wednesday. Thank you. So this show is dedicated to you. You know who you are. So, you guys out there that are into role-playing games and a whole bunch of other stuff and have been asked to be a GM, okay? I'm actually kind of hoping that some of my GMs will come in here. There are people here that have been at my tables many, many times. And thank you guys for being here. So, y'all want Solar Gray's Back in the Decks GMing secrets. Okay, now, I am totally willing to give that to you guys, and I'm gonna give those to you guys. But you know what I'm asking for in return? For you and maybe a friend, never know, you and a friend. Oh wow, it popped open. Oh, my coffee maker. Maybe you, a friend or something, to subscribe to the channel, y'all. Subscribe on YouTube, subscribe here on Twitch, become a member here on Twitch, and guess what? You don't have to use your money. You can use Jeff Bezos's money. Okay? Yeah, that's right. You can just sign up here doing all of that stuff using your Amazon Prime account. All right? That'll sign you up for 30 days. And this is big, okay? It gives you 30 days that you can support me and be one of my actual subscribers for free. It won't cost you a dime. You'll have it for the whole month, and then I can bat my eyelashes at you cutely and ask you to do that next month. Also, if you guys get any value out of what this is, I'm just going to leave a link right here in the chat. Chat here on Twitch. Chat here on YouTube. for places that you can donate to us to maybe buy me a cup of coffee or join the Instagram and all that jazz. Or not the Instagram, but join the Patreon, because really that's how I'm trying to pay my mortgage. I'm a forklift driver by day, but I'm also in my mid 40s, and real talk, that is more than perhaps a little damaging on the body. And I was always taught you should work with your mind because you're weak. You can't play basketball, you can't dunk. So yeah, that would be a total thing. Oh wow, you are so awesome, Vision Vendor. Thank you. So now that we've got all the begging, all the advertising, all the shout outs, all that stuff out of the way. Oh God, I don't know how to turn this new phone to silent. So that is definitely a thing. All right, so now that we got all that, and when I say new phone, I mean new phone to me. I actually bought it off of Facebook Marketplace for $20 from a teenager that got a real phone, and I said, my phone is actually 6 years old, so I'll take yours for $20, and then I set it up on my Metro PCS account so that I can make phone calls, because that's my favorite app. My favorite app is calling people. Anyway, now that we've got all those jokes and stuff out of the way, so you guys have asked me to give some GM tips and all that, but y'all know how I am. I love giving workshops and things like that, so I'm putting this out there for you guys today. So welcome to the Back in the Deck GM's Workshop, as he puts sugar and cream in his coffee. Now, I hear all the time how first-time GMs are so freaking intimidated, and we've talked about this on the show many times in the past. The intimidation of, oh my God, they want me to GM, and that means game master, and I don't know all the rules. And then you get all those anxiety mosquitoes from Big Mouth just swarming around you. They're gonna know that you don't write an original story, and they're gonna know that you don't know all the rules, and there's gonna be that one player that yeah, you know, I get all that. And what I'm gonna say to you is take a breath. And we are going to go through this, and I'm gonna walk you through how to be a GM. Now, this is a part one, because I'm gonna do a 2-part series, okay, y'all? Just a 2-part series, because being a GM isn't really a lot, but, well, how can I put it? It's complex, but not complicated. All right. And if you guys were here Monday night, you saw me running a game of Warp Tumblers, and it's actually pretty simple. My players were like, I didn't plan on doing all that. Game master, I hardly know. I hardly game knower. Yes, yeah. Now, I'm going to put this out there, okay? Back in the 70s, when D&D first hit the scene, which was really the first tabletop RPG that coined the term game master, when it hit the main market, guess what? There were no game masters. Okay, there really were. I mean, think about when the game first started, okay? A whole bunch of people saw this new game, and the Dungeon Master was really the person that was responsible for the monsters and coming up with the game, or coming up with the maze, and that was about it. Now, back in the early days, it was pretty much all dungeon crawl all the time, all right? Think Diablo and Diablo 2. And Diablo 3. As the decades have passed and video games have come in, a lot of people get this idea that it is supposed to be a collaborative storytelling experience. Hey, Blurtish, lurkin'. A lot of people get this idea that it's supposed to be a collaborative storytelling experience, and it is. But too many people get this idea that every story has to be original. And by original, they tend to mean something that they have never seen before in any genre of media, all right? And I'm here to tell you that is a thought, and it is only a thought. It is a thought, not an idea. Okay, just a thought, but a lot of people like to take their thoughts and make their thoughts into beliefs. And you know what? I gotta tell you today that it is just a thought, okay? Now I know it's tough being in the way latter part of 2023. We're in the 21st century where the internet says, I want original stories, blah, blah, blah. And you know what my neural spice makes me say to people who ask those questions? Given that you were in your 30s, meaning that you were born in the 1980s and 1990s, growing up with Blockbuster Video, television, cable TV, free TV, at least 3 movies coming out of a week, comic books, comic book movies, and then came the internet with YouTube, Twitch, all of the streaming services replacing the video stores, okay? Because you might not have had the Blockbuster or the Korean-owned grocery store or the Korean-owned video store down the street, but between Amazon, Netflix, Redbox, Disney, Max, Peacock, Hulu, all right, given all of the media you have access to and have had access to, what would be original? What haven't you seen? Not to mention all of the novels that we have access to with the internet and libraries. What stories have you not heard at this point? Real talk. Okay, what story? Hey, what's going on, Nerdy Brew? What stories have you not heard, seen, read, seen remade, seen copied? Okay, as we get older, we become a little more media literate, okay? I'm sorry to tell you guys, but I went to film school. I learned a lot about media literacy, and seriously, I had to change my standard of it's not whether or not I've seen the story before. It is, am I engaged with the way that the story is being presented, okay? Now, one of my all-time favorite movies is Casablanca. I love Casablanca. I love the writing, the acting, the set design, the cinematography, and the score. Love it all. I'm not a big fan of barbed wire, okay? And I'm putting that out there because barbed wire is a 1990s, early 2000s, help me out, chat, remake of Casablanca starring Pamela Anderson and lots of explosions, okay? Same story beats, beat for beat for beat. And nobody hated that movie because they said, this is just Casablanca. No. Okay? They didn't like the movie because they didn't like the movie. There was a whole lot about it that they didn't like. Hey, what's going on, Havoc? You're 2 away from one of my favorite songs. Yeah, so, and if you guys have had a whole lot of stuff that I like over the years and have done things like read 3 to 5 books out of the Joseph Campbell library, then you know the monomyth like the back of your hand. And it doesn't matter if you're watching Excalibur or A New Hope. Both great movies, both telling the same story. Okay, it's the hero's journey all the way across. Okay, and people are like, well, I want stuff that's original. Do you? Or do you want something that you don't immediately recognize? Or do you want something that's comfortable? Okay, this is a really big question when it comes to filmmaking. All right, and filmmaking is one of the most popular forms of storytelling. All right, this is a really big thing. Yeah, exactly. If we only consumed original content, we'd never ask Sam to play it. Play it. She can take it, I can. So, now that we can throw away the original thing, that should take away pressure for the story that you're telling. And yes, reading is tight. Reading is also relatively easy, barely an inconvenience. Hey, I said the thing from another channel. That means I'm like you when I like stuff. So, when it comes down to being a GM, this is what you need. And I explain this to people all the time. What D&D is, yeah, a bunch of people are telling a story, but here's the way it works. The dungeon master writes an outline for the story. The players create characters to be in that story. And then you guys act out the story using dice to determine things that you may or may not achieve. And there is nowhere in the rulebook that says that the players have to stick to the script. That is all it is. It's a great big game of pretend when if you go, I stab him, someone says, roll these dice to see if the pointy end goes into the bad guy or hits the wall. That's it. That's all. However, a lot of GMing also falls into the realm of getting a bunch of cats to go to a specific place. So, I'm going to start with the very first thing that we need when we start to GM, and that is player consent. This is achieved in two main ways. Either you say, I got this need. I gotta run a game. I feel like running some Call of Cthulhu. Who wants to play Call of Cthulhu with me? And if other people say, I want to be in a Lovecraft story, then you've got consent. The other way is for players to come to you and say, would you mind running a game for us? And you say, no, I don't mind running a game for you at all. Okay? So, once you've got player consent, then you have to agree upon a game. Now, as of time of recording, November 2023, the most popular tabletop RPG in the United States is still Dungeons and Dragons. I say that because for my viewers in Japan and a few other countries, Call of Cthulhu is right behind them. All right? But just agreeing to play Dungeons and Dragons, that's kind of a big ask, because Dungeons and Dragons has over 50 different books. Actually, they have about 75 books currently. And upon those 75 books, what are they? Well, those books contain character classes, character species, because I don't like saying race. You know, I'm on the internet. They tend not, the algorithm doesn't like that word almost as much as it likes, that thing that kept us inside for 2 years. So the big thing about running Dungeons and Dragons is, do you use a pre-written world for Dungeons and Dragons, such as Forgotten Realms, Planescape, or Dragonlance? Or do you make up your own? Okay. So that's number one. All right. What game are you going to play? And what part of the game are you going to play? If you choose to run something Lovecraftian, you can go for past, present, or future. And I'm talking Mythic Age. I'm talking the 1920s, kind of postmodernism. I'm going modern age, as in time of recording, November 2023, or even future age. Yes, there is Cthulhu Cyberpunk, because you add tentacles and unknown thing to any setting, and that's what you got. Okay. And this is well, did I like the movie? Which movie? We'll get to that. Okay. And again, there are dozens upon dozens of different games to play. I have been aching to play a superhero RPG that I'm not running for a while, and I currently run Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm trying to get my Esper Genesis game back up and going, because I feel like running some sci-fi adventure. Okay, that's really what I've been wanting to do. So there's all those things. Now, once you've got that, okay, one of the things that you have to do is come up with a story arc. And this right here is the GM's job. Now, there are many, many ways to come up with a story arc. You can have a rail shooter, which a lot of people are like, oh my God, we're being railroaded. We'll get to that. Or there is Sandbox. This is the universe, go play. Now these things, these decisions, and I'm speaking majoratively now, are truly based. Oh yeah, Nerdy Brew, D&D can do modern age or the future. And did I see the D&D movie? Yes, and I adored it because it felt a lot like playing a D&D game. All right, very easy to insert oneself into one of the characters, and the decisions that are made and all of the tropes from the D&D table came out in that movie. If you guys got Paramount Plus, I highly recommend watching it. It is very fun, and especially the way that it wrapped up. I really did like the wrap up. But this is not a movie review for Dungeons and Dragons. This is a GM's workshop. So, now, when you come up with a story arc, you have to really talk to your players and ask what kind of game would they like to play. All right. Now, I am a very compromising GM. Okay, a very compromising GM. And what does that mean? Well, I write a story arc. Okay, I write a problem, a plot, if you will. I write milestones, if you will. Okay, and when I say I write, I don't mean I write a whole novel. All right, I have bullet points. All right, Nerdy Brew, give the kids a hug for me. Yeah. When I come up with a campaign, I have the overarching story. What is the problem? What is the thing that the characters have got to do? What are the consequences for them not doing it? And why are our players the ones who can solve it? All right. Now that is the overarching thing. All right. It's like one of the ways that we've all learned how to do this is playing video games over the past 20 years. Okay. You've got the storyline mode, and then you've got achievement mode and all that stuff. You get what you get where I'm coming with that? So I have the storyline, I have the major players they're going to run into, and I have what those major players are going to ask them to do, who the bad guys are, where the problems are. This does not require more than 2 sheets of paper. Okay? Boom. 2 sheets of paper. That's it. No more. That's all you need. All right? And an understanding that every single player, I'll get there, Dylan. I will get there. What is your theory on cosplay years ago to modern time? I'll get there. So every single player will create a character, and we live in a very self-centric type of society here in the United States. And what do I mean? I mean that every player that creates a character will pour an aspect of themselves into the player character, into their character, and become emotionally attached to that character. Okay? And this is good. This is very good. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this. All right? However, keeping this in mind as a GM, I will know that, number 1, each player who creates a character will make that character the main character in their own head canon. Okay? So this means when I put together a campaign, unless I talk with the players and say, Mark is the main character of this game, is that cool? I have to do something else. Okay? And how do we do that? Well, we keep in mind that we will have 2 to, in my case, 8 other players that will all have a story of their own. Okay? And then will come the necessity to interweave the characters' stories, their backstories, their skills, their time to shine, into the overall plot. Hold up, stop, come back. All right, come back before you click off. I don't mean you have to do this thing by thing in a very, very controlling way. All right? What I do mean is that if you have a character that, say, put in their backstory, they have enemies. Well, those enemies have got to come up in a session or two somewhere. Okay? And you can throw them in as a way to spice up a boring session. You can have a serious plan for them to come out. All right? But either way, you have to know that they are there. Now, part of being a GM is keeping copious notes, either in a notebook, in a spreadsheet, or right here. I almost poked myself in the eye. That would have been funny. Now, before I go on, Dylan Soto asks, what's your theory on cosplay years ago to modern time? I need you to rephrase that question because I don't understand what you're asking when you say theory. I need a little clarification on that. Are you asking my opinion? Are you asking whether or not are you asking why I think cosplaying exists? I really don't know, and I want to answer your question clearly and engagedly. Okay, so if you could restate it and be more specific with your question, I would appreciate it. Now here's the thing. Coming up with all of this is an overall story thing. There are pitfalls that a lot of new GMs fall into, all right? And I'm going to list off a particular resource that isn't a trap, but it can have this pitfall, okay? And that is modules. Pre-written adventures. We're talking pre-existing dungeons. I mean, Drive-Thru RPG and RPG.net has loads, okay? If you were to print them out on standard printer-sized paper, you would probably have about 7 pounds of pre-written adventures. Keep in mind, role-playing is almost 50 years old, so there have been tons of modules written, not to mention every single comic book adventure, every graphic novel, every movie, that can be an adventure. Okay, you can literally rip a plot from a movie you've seen and shove them into it and see what they would do. Sometimes I do this with a Lovecraft story in my D&D games. Sometimes I throw people in slasher flicks. Who knows? You know, I'm talking, again, I mentioned all of the media that we have access to. I can tell you that a lot of my players have run through entire episodes of Star Trek and not known. But here is the pitfall. A lot of the times, the GM has an idea. Oh God, yeah, thousands of pages, annotates. Here's the pitfall. When you get a campaign, a dungeon delve, it's really, really easy to think that the players will get through that campaign in one session. Guess what? No. That is rarely the case, okay? And you know what? This is a great thing. This is really a great thing. One of the major things about running a campaign and things like that, it's really simple, okay? As you guys know, if you're longtime viewers of the channels, I love a product from Steam Forged Games. Okay, let me pull these things up. Called Epic Encounters. Okay, and Epic Encounters are fantastic. Just really fantastic fantastic things. They are pre-made campaigns that come with models, the whole encounter, maps, all of that jazz. I love it. Love them. All right. This is fascinating. Yeah, I love them. Okay. Because no, not you. You. Okay. Boop. There we go. Yeah, these guys right here. All right, look at these guys. These guys, I mean, we're talking, this is 2 campaigns. This is furry friends and all that stuff. But this is a picture of the kobolds in one, and then the goblins in another. They go from like 50. They go as high as $50, as low as $35, and they are a real, honest to God campaign for 5th edition. They are fantastic, and I have at least 2 of them. All right. And the first time I opened up one, I had my players, all they had to do was follow the directions and all that other jazz. I was trying to run a one-shot, trying hard to run a one-shot, and sure enough, they didn't follow the story beats. As I said earlier, there is no rule that says that players have to follow the plot, all right? They have absolute agency, and unlike video games, there is an unlimited budget of what they can do in the game, okay? That means if they want to go off on a side quest, then they're going off on a side quest. That's what they're going to do, all right? That's just what they're going to do, and it's up to the GM to be able to have something set aside for those side quests, okay? It is very rare that you sit at a table with players that are all about getting from A to B. There is going to be someone, always going to be someone, who gets into a fight, flirts with the wrong player, rolls terribly on their charisma roll, decides that instead of fighting the orcs that are riding polar bears to try and keep you out of the cave, that not only are they going to fight the orcs, but they are going to take one of those bears. Okay? Again, I don't know what it is, but I cannot run a game without somebody, yeah, exactly, decides to pee on a robot dog while wearing jorts. It's just a thing. And not pee on a robot dog to scare it, but to show its superiority, so in order to reprogram the robot dog to make it obey them. That is just what they do. Those are what players do, especially in the 21st century when people lean on comedy when they get nervous. Okay? It's just a thing. So, as a GM, I personally let them. I'm like, okay, what's your purpose in doing that? Okay, you're going to have to make this roll. And I have an idea in my head of if they pass or fail. Okay, that's really just what happens. So it's about being flexible with deviations from your plot. Okay, I ran a game around 6 years ago where my players had decided to befriend a mimic instead of killing it. And then they had a mimic as a pet because the druid rolled a natural 20 on her animal handling skill. And every day I made her roll another animal handling skill with charisma behind it to make sure that the mimic didn't turn. And then after 2 weeks of that, boom, the mimic had bonded and did what animals do and all that stuff. But yeah, they had a pet mimic, and there it is. Okay. And they weren't even a ranger, so it wasn't like they had animal companion mimic. This is something that came out in gameplay. The players liked it, and we went on. And that's the point. The point of being a flexible dungeon master is having an idea of what story you'd like your players to go through and allowing them to go through your story their way. Okay? Now, When this happened with the module, with the polar bears, they never got to the boss. Okay, that didn't happen. I was trying to run a one shot. That was their one shot. And they used that one shot to carjack a bunch of orcs. And they loved it. Okay, seriously, they loved it. Did I do all that work to read the whole module, get the boss set up, make sure I had a good mini, had the trap set up, learned all that stuff? Yes, I did. But, hold up, come back. All right. This does not mean that my work was wasted. Okay. It doesn't mean that it was wasted. What it means is that I'm prepped for the next time they happen into a cave and I want to throw orcs at them. All the work has already been done. It's there. It's a packet. I can go open up file, boom. This is what happens. And guess what? Your polar bear recognizes one of the other polar bears because they're from the same brood. And now, rolling a dice, it might be mating season. We don't know. Okay, but it's there. All right. So, as a GM, all right, I have always run a lot of my adventures like a choose your own adventure novel with an unknown third box. Yeah, now Ganja Guru, you were so funny. I thought I was being lazy by reusing adventures that the players didn't do the first time. No, you're not. You're not being lazy by using previously done adventures that your players didn't do. Okay? It's also not lazy to buy a pre-made module. It really isn't. All right? The important thing, okay? Well, I'm going to ask you this. From GM to players out there, I want you guys to comment. If you get a flat tire on your car, are you being lazy for not growing a rubber tree and then tapping it and then refining it and carving a mold for a tire instead of just going to a mechanic and getting a new tire or getting a used tire? Is that lazy? No, I don't think it is. Honestly, Oscar Wilde said talent borrows, genius steals, but engineering rule number 1 is don't waste your time, energy, and resources designing and building something that is readily available to purchase within your budget. Okay? I'm not going to carve a pencil and burn up the woodland shavings to make coal and then put water in the coal and then condense the coal down into a nice smooth rod and then put it in a pressurizer in order to push everything together for it to mesh properly. All right, and then carefully slide that rod into a previously carved piece of wood. No, I'm just gonna go buy a pencil. Okay, I mean seriously, that really is a thing. So no. Now, if you've already done this with your story and your players don't go down that path, it's fine, okay? Because there is another thing, and we'll get to that a little bit later, all right? So we've talked about getting player consent, choosing your world, and honestly choosing your game and your rule set, all right? And to allow your players the freedom to deviate from the path. Not everywhere is a field of poppies, all right? A lot of places are, but not everyone. And I'll tell you guys a story. I was playing a game with a GM, and this was not a great GM, where the GM essentially told me they didn't want me in that plot without saying it. And they said, oh, well, this place is not cool for your species. I'm like, well, I'm a life mage. So I'll just adjust my body to go on in. And they're like, well, you fail and you die. That is railroading. All right. The best D&D games have been played under the premise, okay, of I understand the plot. I understand story beats and stuff like that, but they have a huge component of improv, okay? And when I say improv, I mean yes and. All right? If your players want to do this, yes, and consequence roll, there it is. Now, sometimes you'll be stuck with some players, all right? And those players will be afraid to move, all right? They will be very, very, very afraid to get into combat, investigate something, because they don't want anything to happen to their player, because they're afraid of being embarrassed or dumb or looking stupid or anything like that, okay? Especially with a lot of new players. With that, as a GM, this comes down to our next session. Understand your players, okay? People are diverse. They just are. All right? No two people are exactly alike. Yes, everybody's a snowflake. I don't care if you're right wing or left wing. Everyone is unique. Okay? But uniqueness doesn't mean all the way unique. It means, variations in small and sometimes large ways. Okay? And within your group of players, there will always be someone who's about that action. All right? The internet has come to call some of these people murder hobos, instigators, troublemakers, whoever. All right? It is always good. Hey, what's going on, open mind? It is always good to have one or two of those players around, because they keep stuff from getting boring. Okay? Now, I have seen hundreds of hours of GM talks and GM discussions and had many, many conversations with writers and GMs and a lot of stuff. And here are some of the tips that I enjoy. Go ahead, get a pencil, take a note. Number 1, the mistaken identity trope. This is when an NPC mistakes one of the player characters for someone else and starts crap with them. Okay, if you guys watch Warp Tumblr C24, you've seen this trope in action, and this is how one of our main characters, who hates combat, by the way, became a professional wrestler. It happened. Okay, the mistaken identity got them in a wrestling match, and the moment this happened, the rest of the table said, no, you're doing this, man, you're doing this. And it became fun, and it became a recurring trope. Okay? Thing number 2, unrequested antagonization, i.e., steal something from your party. Somebody's getting pickpocketed, someone's getting held up, someone's getting mugged, someone's getting, okay? I'm going to let you players out there know when GMs are rolling their dice behind that thing and they're just not telling you what's happening. It's not always just to mess with your head. A lot of the times, I ran a game of Esper Genesis with a bunch of very media savvy people that ran away from every single trope. As soon as they saw that there was plot, they said no. And eventually the game devolved into them being a delivery service because they didn't want to help anybody. It might be a trap. They didn't want to take any jobs that would require combat. It was a trap. They didn't want to lose. They didn't want to lose their characters. They didn't want to take damage. In short, they didn't want to play without knowing that they didn't want to play. They didn't want to take any risks. Okay? And it was a lot. All right? After the delivery service part of the game had started getting on their nerves, I was able to have a talk with them, and I'm like, guys, every story hook I throw out there, you guys avoid, because as players, you're running away from the trope. You don't want to be in a horror movie. You kind of want to be in a sci-fi adventure. Okay? And I'm trying to give you sci-fi adventure, but there's no such thing as an adventure without danger. Okay? Even Indiana Jones had to go across traps, but it's like, hey, that looks like it might be a trap. I'm going to stay at the bar. You see what I mean? So if you have a player or two that's about that life, okay, that will, I know this sounds a little weird. I know it sounds a little weighty on the side of the players, but I'm going to tell you this. I want you to think of every single superhero team that you've seen in all or any of the superhero movies and media that you've seen over the past 20 years. Okay? Justice League's got Batman. Okay, the X-Men have Wolverine. And Gambit and Jubilee. The Avengers got Iron Man and Black Widow and Thor. Thor's all about that life, you know? And when I say about that life, I don't mean they're all about starting crap with people. They're really all about saving people. Spider-Man is all about active, not reactive, adventuring or storytelling, okay? So as a GM, I have to make sure that there's always an opportunity for my players to act. And if they avoid that acting, that's when the railroad comes in. Hey, Open Mind, what's up? You just put two different emojis out there and I don't recognize them both. I see, hey, he's smoking, happy, and the other one is something. I don't know. I'm a middle-aged man. I don't. My emoji game is just terrible. So when you have players that are about that life, then you can give something, some kind of story hook out there, and they won't just get hooked by it. They will grab that hook, they will put their foot in that hook, and they will swing on that line that the hook is attracted to, okay, or attached to. And this is good. This is very, very good. Now, thing number 3 that I use as a GM, all right, are consequences. Okay, consequences are huge in a game. You remember when I said I let my players do what they're gonna do? You know, if you want to rob the townsperson, fine, go for it. You're gonna get a reputation for robbing townspeople. You want to kill people indiscriminately and become murder hobos? You absolutely can. However, NPCs around that are going to start putting up wanted posters. Hey, there's a serial killer. You know, if you want to help out every single person that comes down from getting a cat out of a tree to buying someone a loaf of bread, you can do that too. You'll get a great reputation for being a decent person. You might even get a reputation for being a pushover. Okay? Everything that players do regularly will have an effect on the world that you have created or joined in. That is the primary reason that most people play role-playing games in the first place. Okay? So consequences are a really good way to keep the story going. I learned this from Lord of the Rings, because on one hand, Gandalf can go out and grab an army. On another hand, Gandalf walks into somewhere and they're like, oh, great, you're here. You know, you never show up when things are all right. Every time you show up, that means things are about to get real bad. I don't know if I should let you in. You know what I mean? So having consequences for your players' actions are a really big one. Now, my absolute favorite, and somebody in the chat's gonna go, oh, I was waiting for him to bring that up. My favorite, I guess you can say, storytelling interaction tool are called fate points or cool points. They're called fate points in the fate system, which is essentially, it's called the compulsion system. Okay? And this requires me knowing a lot about the players' personalities. Okay? Now, or not the players, but the character's personality. Now, there is a horribly abusive term, and I say horribly abusive because that is what players have been using for decades to be jerks at the table, which is, it's what my character would do. Okay? As a GM, I think, what would their character do? Well, what are the personality traits listed on the card? You hate bullies? Cool. I'm going to put a bullying situation out there, and I'm going to offer you a fate point. Now, this fate point will give a really cool bonus whenever you want to use it, and you get it by doing what your character would do in that moment. However, in order to not take it, you have to give me one that you've previously banked. If you don't have one, then you're taking the fate point and you're following that story arc. Is it a little bit of railroading? Absolutely. Is it railroading based on what the player has told me? Absolutely. Okay. If the character, say, is phobic of potatoes, and they are going 100 places that I, as a GM, don't want them to go, they break into someone's house, and when they get to the kitchen, the house is filled with potatoes, which you're afraid of. I'm offering you this to run. And if you don't have one to give me, then your character runs. If you have one to give me, and we've got Xanathades. Is it railroading? Absolutely. But you're the one that got on the train. Choo choo, all aboard. But no, seriously speaking, compulsions are great because in storytelling and in real life, there are certain things that people cannot help but doing. Now, a major pitfall as a GM that I run into is, again, players inserting too much of themselves into the character that they created and reacting in a way that they 100% would. And so I find myself asking questions like, is your character that street smart? Or isn't your character educated in this? Wouldn't they know that? Yeah, but I don't know. Of course you don't know. That's why you make a roll. And this is a big thing. Okay? I will tell you as a GM what I've seen in new players, both GM and, hey, Decker! Right, Leroy Jenkins, about that life. Now, what a lot of players are afraid of is embarrassment, okay? I despise that we live in an age that mockery is the second go-to place. Avoidance is the first, mockery is the second. Now, kind of makes having fun a little difficult when people think that you have to be a master at something in order to enjoy it, okay? Now I can talk about cultivating a safe environment and all that stuff. I could. But fact of the matter is people are going to try and be snarky and sarcastic because Joss Whedon was a very popular writer and has been for the past 30 freaking years. I hate it, okay? And this is coming from someone who is sarcastic as all get out. But the key to good comedy is timing, okay? You have to understand that now is not the time for a joke. And if it is the time for a joke, it might not be time for that joke. All right? Don't worry about being nervous. Everyone at the table either are already or will eventually be friends. So go for that. Okay? So let's see. I've gone over the compulsion system. I've talked about pitfalls. Now, timing. Now let's talk about actual game preparation. All right. There are 100 tools out there, but if you're a new GM, write this down. I got this from RuneSmith on YouTube, and I get the feeling that they put this together based on observation and not theory. But every gaming session has 5 requirements, and I've shown this in the show before. Okay, requirement 1 is something interesting to do. Okay, yeah, sometimes it's an escort mission, sometimes it's a treasure hunt, sometimes it's a monster slay. Okay, yeah, I mean, this is just one of these things, all right? Something interesting to do, somewhere interesting to go, someone interesting to meet, possibly something interesting to fight, and something interesting to get, okay? In my experience, if you have 3 out of who, where, why, and what else, you've got a good gaming session, all right? Think about that like little short stories that are chapters in a book, all right? Where are they going? Why are they going there? What gets in their way? How do they overcome it? And what do they get for it? That's it. I mean, it's not that complicated, okay? Where are they going? The party, or what do they need? The party needs money. Where can they get it? They can get it by hiring out their services. They have a client that says, I need you to rescue my daughter. Okay, now that's what we're going to do, and somebody interesting to meet. Great. Where's the daughter? Gotta go there. What's in the way? Bunch of snake people. What do we get when we get the daughter? We get the girl away from the bad guy, and we get money. All right, that's what we need to do. That's what we're going. All right, and that's it. That's all you need. The players will take care of everything else at the table if you let them. All right. A lot of people in my time as a GM love hiding behind this. My character wouldn't do that. Why not? You're an adventurer. This is an adventure. Why would your character not take it? I don't know this woman. What's her meaning to me? How about the money that you get from rescuing her? You like money, right? Well, yeah, I like money, and you need money. Yeah, then get to work. You know, it really is that simple. But I find that a lot of the times, players that do this already have a story in mind that they are trying to impose. And this is where we get to a big player complication. The player terrorist. This is the one that tries to take over the game. Every GM deals with this person differently. But I would be remiss in my duties as a professional gamer if I didn't let you know of their existence and what they do. All right? I've run games at a lot of tables and a lot of societies and a lot of places. And sometimes the terrorist is passive aggressive. Sometimes they're manipulative. Sometimes they're just outright jerks. All right? My way of dealing with them is to pull them aside and to give them the opportunity of stating what they want by asking them directly, and then informing them that if their actions show me that they are trying to do something other than what they have just said, they can exit my table and never come back. I know it sounds kind of harsh, but at this point in my life, I am sick and tired of people that act manipulative while telling me that they're not manipulating. I've come to know that they mean they're not trying to, but that is an argument in and of itself, and I just don't want to go into it. I get triggered, okay? When you have a gaming terrorist, sometimes it's the same player that's about that life. A lot of times, you have to be willing to let them go, okay? A gaming terrorist is a player that has main character syndrome so bad that they tell other players what to do with their characters. They tell them how to play, what to play, and they suck the fun out of the room for everyone else to assure their own fun. You get me? This is a tough one. Now, I know I sound kind of harsh, and I said I give them the opportunity. And by giving them the opportunity to recognize what they're doing and to alter their course, I let them know how their actions are making everyone else at the table feel, particularly me or the person who is more bothered by it than I am. And I ask them what they actually want. Okay? my business mentor used to play D&D kind of, sort of. And he doesn't create characters that are good people. In the sense of, if the players aren't adhering to either his plan or the most logical means of taking care of something, he will have his character just kill their characters. And I'm like, that's not the way to play. That's you ruling, not collaborating. And he's like, yeah, that's why I don't play D&D anymore. And I'm like, cool, thank you. I will never invite you to my table. And that's a big thing. Now, a lot of people do this by nature, and they don't want to be jerks. And they want to do something other than that. So at that point, you're in an instructive mode. You know, with the, Mike, we talked about this. Mike? You know, more often than not, I come across people when I'm running a table that live in a scarcity mentality. And what does that mean? Well, it manifests itself in two ways. They are so afraid of being left out that they cut everyone off with their idea or their joke. Okay? And they end up stepping on the toes of everyone at the table. You know, with their idea, their action, they try, you know, they're always cutting stuff off. Not because they're trying to rule, but because they're afraid of being left out. Now, that's a conversation that in my experience I can't have with people because folks get defensive on that. So as a GM, what do I do when I notice it? Well, I don't. What I do from the beginning is I make it very clear in my actions that I go around the table asking each person what they're doing. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you thinking? It looks like you're not saying something. What is it that your character would say? Okay. And this is one done to allow my players to know that in the eyes of the GM, the most important eyes at the table, everyone is important. Okay. Everyone is important. Everyone has a say. But a lot of people, because of growing up in Generation X, Millennials, Zoomers, and whoever comes after that, a lot of people are scarred from speaking up and having their ideas ignored, diminished, trounced on, or being mocked. So it makes a lot of people really reticent to actually speak their mind. It's like we're afraid to be incorrect because we equate the moral judgment of wrong with the act of making an error. And a lot of people have been on the receiving end of retribution from that wrong. You know I have. Therefore, I make it very clear that no. You just, if I have to say your character isn't strong enough for doing that, or that's not how that power works, I make it very clear to them that I don't mean stupid. No. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not how that power works. It works this way, you know. And this is one of the reasons why people actually like being at my table sometimes. So when it comes down to these things, understanding your players, where they're coming from, what they're working through, because everybody's working through something. All right. And what game they'd like to play, or what game they think they're playing. That is a really big thing for a GM to know and to try and understand. Okay. Is this okay? Okay. Good. All right. I'm not getting any DMs. All right. So what have we gotten about on this ramble? All right. It is player consent. Understand the game that you're playing. Don't freak out about not knowing all the rules. Have a plot. Allow your players to achieve your plot however they choose to do it. Okay? i.e., don't take away player agency. Have consequences. And above all else, keep the game fun. Now, that doesn't mean laughing all the time. Sometimes that means setting a mood. All right. And this is what we're going to go over next time. All right. Setting a mood for a game. Is it horror? Cool. How do we set up the mood for horror or comedy or slapstick or whatever? And all of these things can be done session by session by session. If you guys watched Warp Tumbler's C24 Ship of Fools, it was on Monday. All right. I had decided to get a little emotional in that particular story, taking one of my players' anger at an NPC for what they did and show that what they did was the best bad choice they could make. And my players were like, oh, I didn't expect that. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. You know? And it went from, I'm angry at you for abandoning me, to finding out, oh, you abandoned me to keep me out of slavery. Crap. You know, you know, should I be mad? Should I stay mad? And it was a really fulfilling experience. And my players didn't see it coming. Okay? They didn't see it coming. And I promise it's not the end to that story arc. Oh, no. No. Because I suck at endings, so I avoid them at all costs. You know. So yeah, when it really came down to it, all right. I tried to set a mood. I tried to set things. I used basic storytelling, creative writing 101 tropes. Set up a mood, establish a theme, turn left on certain tropes, and lean in to other tropes. And this is how to keep players engaged and keep players guessing. Now, as I said, we live in a cynical age, so a lot of the times, your players are going to be less engaged with the game that you're running and more engaged in solving it. All right? This is something I realized while I was writing this yesterday. And I was watching a woman react to the Back to the Future trilogy. And she got on this mindset on figuring out how time travel works and solving the puzzle of, okay, well, how is this? Instead of watching the movie and allowing the story to inform her. You know, I don't know how it happened, but we very much became media consumers that seem more engrossed on showing how clever we are than we are in enjoying a story. It might be because of overstimulation. It could be oversaturation of media that we ingest. I don't know. This might be old man yell at clout segment, because I will tell you guys honestly, I do that occasionally, but when I get lost and confused, I'm not about solving the lostness and confused. I just finish watching it, trusting that the publishers of the story work that out. It's that simple. And I'm not going to get into a discussion on time travel because I have a degree in physics. Not a lot of other people around me do have a degree in physics, so I'm not. And having a degree in physics means that I know I'm not an expert in something that's never been done. So I don't get into those arguments, okay? But I love time travel as a theory, and I know bootstrap theory, and, you know, own grandfather theory and all that other stuff. I get it. I have fun playing with each of those tropes, and I'm not looking for how it actually works until I can go to the future about 2 weeks, get the lotto numbers, and come back. All right? Until I can do that, I'm not going to. You know, I'm not going to debate about those things. So, knowing that players are going to go on these tangents and try and figure out this little thing as a piece of engagement comes an actual puzzle for the dungeon master into how can I get them so engrossed in the story that they don't latch on to a belt buckle. Okay. And what do I mean? I just explained. what I mean by getting attached to a belt buckle. The world is going down around them, and I remember when I first tried to tell someone about Game of Thrones. This was right after I read the books, and this was way before the show came out. And I explained to them Westeros and the long winters, and the first thing they did was go on this meteorological rant on how long winters and shit like that can't happen. And I'm just like, you could just tell me that you're not interested. Instead of tearing down what I'm trying to tell you about a story that I didn't write and how much it sucks and how much it doesn't make any sense, just tell me you're not interested. All right? Jeez. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting instant messages right now. Someone's sliding into the DMs. Let's see what they have to say. Woohoo. So, but that's also just me. When I try and create an atmosphere, I do I do my best to do voices and to come up with characters. And this is an important thing. Oh, sweet. This is a very, very important thing. It's a fantasy thing. They need to put real world rules out of the way. I'm right there with you, Decker Bloodclaw. Just last night I watched one of the Lego superhero things, and they made fun of Captain America for believing in Santa Claus, and he's like, I'm on a team with a big green giant, a Norse god, a sentient robot that can walk through walls, and Santa Claus is a step too far. So I'm also navigating my way through a lot of things. So but what I try and do is I try and set up voices and give personalities and a little bit of a back history to my NPCs and let things come out organically. Okay. My players currently in C24, they've got about 3 story threads that they are trying to solve, and things keep coming up. Gravity is not a force in D&D, so their argument is invalid. It's true. But yeah. So I do my best to show compassion to where my players are coming from as people, but I do have to remind them what environment that they are in. Okay. And this is only every once in a while, but in order to set up an engaging story, it's not just atmosphere. A lot of people are afraid to be a GM because of the Mercer effect. If they're not as good as Matt Mercer, they're afraid to try. I can let you know, I have it on very good authority, that Matt Mercer wasn't always that good. He practiced and worked at it, He is a voice actor. He wasn't born with 9 to 15 characters fully fleshed out with individual voices, vocabulary, and speech patterns. How do I know? Because he went to school. He had to learn English at some point. The vocabulary words had to be acquired from somewhere. Not every person who writes a story is going to start as Stephen King or Brent Weeks or Frank Herbert, okay? We all start somewhere. And this idea of you have to be perfect before you even get a chance, leave that for your job applications. This is about having fun. All right? God, I'm cynical today. So I try and have a rough idea of, the NPCs that I have them run into. And guess what, guys? I take a lot from the media that I've ingested that I know my players haven't. In just last night's game, or not last night, today is Wednesday, yeah, in Monday night's game, I threw my players up against 4 more characters from Terry Pratchett's Discworld. They haven't read the Discworld. They go, man, there's 48 books in that series. I'm not even going to start it. Cool. I'm going to be throwing you guys against characters from there. Just in conversation every once in a while, just to add a little flavor, a little fan service to the people who might be watching going, hey, I know that character, Because I think the Discworld is fun. Sometimes I'll have characters inspired from a movie that I watched before a lot of them were born, and that I can almost guarantee they haven't seen it because I didn't know I grew up watching B movies. So there's lots of stuff that I can throw out there, and I like doing impressions. Yet my fear of needles was 100%. Okay. I have no idea what the context on that was, but we're going to continue to go. So, when I'm GMing, and you guys might want to take a couple of things from this, I pull characters from all over the place. I make up certain characters from certain places, and there's lots of things that you can pull from different pieces of media, and different experiences that you've had in your life. There was a dark, mysterious lady who had needle-like teeth. That's right. I didn't realize you were afraid of needles. But yeah. So as I was saying, so there's a lot of places that you can pull from. The number one thing to think about when you're creating your outline, when you're coming up with your antagonists and your NPCs, is what does this character have that will make it memorable? Okay. Is this person sweet but kind of stupid? Is this person odd? Is this person a little smarmy? And you kind of create the character just like you do in an improv group. And again, we're right back to the yes and. My character wants to light a cigar in the middle of the tavern. Yes, and there are 3 other people smoking cigars. Haha. Are they part of a secret society? Maybe. Are they, say, a bunch of people that just don't like each other and plan on putting those cigars out in each other's eyes as a way to challenge for dominance? Possibly. Okay. But you can let all your creativity flow and pick what would keep your players engaged. Okay. And these are things that just happen. A major pitfall that a lot of GMs fall into is they try and predict what their players are going to do and plan around what their prediction is. Now, this isn't a deep pit to fall in. It's just a matter of not being committed to the idea. Okay? Your players are people with thoughts, experiences, previous games, their own knowledge, or their own out-of-player knowledge for tropes, and their own media literacy. Let's see. Hey, Roland. Exactly. Trying to predict players' decisions is like trying to smell the color 9. It's a bit nutty. There's a lot of things that you could calculate and come up with a probability for. But if you only come up with a plan for what you guessed, when they don't do that, what are you going to do? So, again, the yes anding of improv. Yes, and this is what happens. Okay? This happens because you guys did this, or this happens because you guys didn't do this, Not every old man who stumbles into the bar asking you to rescue their wives is going to be the prince asking for you to rescue the betrothed. Sometimes it will be. Other times it won't. Okay? But there will always be a loose plan for the decisions that players make. And don't worry. These things will come to you. Okay, you never know what's going on, or you can have the most perfect game planned, and then your players does something and it sends you on a completely different tangent. All right? But again, like I said earlier, if you come up with a great game and you end up improvising an entire session, it doesn't matter. As long as the players and you had fun, in that session. And the game that you planned, you can always do in the next session. You know, making like, one or two tweaks. Like you might not be in the same city, but the same problems might happen. Your players don't know. They don't know what's in your head. As long as they don't get a peek at your notes. As long as you don't get hacked and they get to look at the player document or your Google Doc with that particular game. Is why I have pen and paper notebooks at a house no one will visit. So, this has been a lot for you guys to take in. And I know it seems rambly, but this is literally just how I communicate. If you guys like what you've seen, if you guys have liked what you've seen, feel free to hit me up with a donation. Help me get a cup of coffee, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Y'all know what to do. This is the internet and y'all ain't new. I love giving people credit. But look, when it comes to being a GM, always start. Just start. Even before you get player consent and all that stuff, come up with a loose outline of what story you want to tell. Is it going to be dragons are coming to end the world? Is it going to be, honestly, I will give you a few pieces of media to watch to show what a really good D&D game would look like. Okay. The first one is definitely the D&D movie. Okay. I say it's the first. It's not the best, but it's the first because it's the most recent. Another really good movie to watch to see how a D&D game can be run is The 13th Warrior. That is a great D&D campaign with fighters, rangers, and a paladin. Okay, and the stakes aren't world-endingly catastrophic. It really is saving a village from an opposing army that you don't know much about. We are talking a 5th to 10th level campaign at best. All right, and it is amazing. The characters are well fleshed out, mostly, and everyone does what everyone does. It's a really good adventure. Roland just started a G.I. Joe RPG campaign. Sweet. Check out some old Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. comics if you're going for that, because not a lot of people know this, but G.I. Joe is based on Nick Fury and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So if you've got access to S.H.I.E.L.D. comics, check that stuff out too, all right? Because G.I. Joe and Cobra are pretty much S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra. So, excuse me. Yeah, so run with that, with the jetpacks and the laser guns that don't hit anyone, but they blow up every ship and everyone has parachutes, See, you remember. Yeah. So yeah, that really is a thing. Let's see. Most cartoons from the 1980s make for good adventures. Okay, we're talking G.I. Joe, He-Man, Thundercats, Silverhawks, Bionic 6, X-Men the animated series. Not as much BTAS, but Spider-Man the animated series. All of these could be really good. She-Ra, hey Neon, where you been? Yeah, all of those cartoons can make for really good role-playing game fodder. Just the story. Centurions. Oh my God, it's so nice to have other middle-aged people here. Yeah, I was all about that jazz. And yeah, check out the story arcs. Not necessarily the settings and the genre, but the stories. Okay? Like quite literally, if you watch like Jason the Wheel Warriors, there's something like, the bad guys are doing this, we have to stop them, and we are the only ones who can, and this is what stands in the way. All of the major plot points, hell, most fictitious dramas like Star Trek, any iteration of Star Trek, can make for a great D&D session or D&D or RPG campaign, especially since Star Trek is an RPG. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, if you're into that. Actually, the stories weren't terrible. I just didn't like the director and what he let the cast do. Firefly, just all of these pieces of media. Lower decks. Yeah, if you want to write a cynical campaign. Bab 5, I knew you were coming in, Neon. Yeah, all of these things. I've told you guys, I've run my characters through, or I've run players at tables every once in a while through so many different TV shows I've watched over the years, and they never knew, because only myself and 3 other people alive watched Earth Final Conflict. But yeah, all of these things were there. Okay, I think the chat is just gonna be like a bunch of people listing stuff. Like, are you guys on RPG, or not RPG, but are you guys on IMDb and just going show? Okay, rolling. Yeah, that's right. Earth Final Conflict was amazing, and Boone was my favorite character. I was so mad when they replaced him. But yeah, so seriously speaking, there was all of these different things. And all of these shows have plot points you can take from, MacGuffins you can take from. The SCP Foundation is amazing for MacGuffins and city ending. I was going to mention Andromeda, but too many people have compared me to the black guy from that show. Yeah, so, quite honestly, all of these shows, every single adventure show, the A-Team, Street Hawk, Knight Rider, all that stuff, Airwolf, all of these things, have story elements that you can grab from. These are things. So don't worry about coming up with original stories. You can say, I'm running a Star Trek game. They're going to make Lower Decks characters. I'm going to have them get the Lochnar from Heavy Metal, which is a glowing green orb that's essentially distilled evil, but there's a bunch of dwarves that are chasing after it because they have to get it back for their master, who is trying to lock it back away, and you're trying to get it for scientific study. Boom. Okay? Yeah, I just took Star Trek, Heavy Metal, and Time Bandits. I mushed it into one thing, and that can be an adventure. It's that easy. Okay, seriously. So you don't have to do a whole lot there. Yeah, that's why it's called Big E and not Lord Atreides. So yeah, when it comes down to all of that stuff, there's stories everywhere and story elements everywhere. Now, we've talked about on this show the Trey Parker and Matt Stone formula for writing stories, but let's gloss over it just a little bit, okay? Just a little bit. Because this has everything to do with running a game from session to session, okay? The 2 major words that come down in a session of an RPG game is but and therefore. Okay? But and therefore. That is there is a thing that your player characters want to do, but there is something in the way. Therefore, they have to overcome the obstacle. I hate to make it that simple, yeah, but it really is. Therefore, it is a thing that works. See what I did there? Huh? See what I did? Let's see who else we got. Okay, yeah. And when you watch more media, watch a movie, watch your favorite episode of Doctor Who and all that stuff, you'll see every single thing that I just brought up right there on the screen. From that point, all that is important is telling it your way. Okay? That is the equivalent of putting your spin on it. Okay? And again, it comes down to, what do the characters want? What stands in the way of them getting it? What do they have to do to get around, through, over, or under that thing standing in the way of it? Have I ever done a campaign based on the Love Boat? No, I have not. I was not a fan of the Love Boat growing up because I'm a hopeless romantic who is embittered at the process of trying to date. I've always been that way, even when I was a kid, because most of my older siblings are close to a decade older than me, and I saw what they went through trying to date, and I'm like, yeah, I want nothing to do with it. I think I want to run through time and see everything. That's just me. However, the Love Boat, I can't say I haven't run something specifically based on the Love Boat, because I have run campaigns where romantic stuff happened in an isolated place, like people falling in love on DS9. You see what I mean? It's all just interconnected. So again, what do they want? What's in the way of them getting it? Who benefits? And who has the power to fix things? Well, the last answer is your player characters, eventually. I always have a character in my games named Maxwell Hauser somewhere. Because I've been a big fan of John Cryer ever since he first hit the scene way back in the 80s. Still my favorite Lex Luthor. Live action Lex Luthor. I want to make that clear. He's my favorite live action Lex Luthor. I even watched 3.5 Men. Which RPG seems most conducive to stealing from Knight Rider? Dude, I will tell you, well, it used to be Clancy Brown. Now it's back and forth between Clancy Brown and Giancarlo Esposito. Okay, because Harley Quinn's an amazing cartoon. But really it comes down to what the actors are reciting as far as the line goes. Neon Arlecchino asks, which RPG system is most conducive to stealing from Knight Rider? Depends. What from Knight Rider do you want to steal? Okay. Because honestly, I can shoehorn Knight Rider into just about anything, because Kit, if we were doing D&D, is an animated cart, or a sentient cart, that has a few other things, like springs on the bottom, and it's controlled by a wizard that looks like Michael Caine, but isn't, because we couldn't afford Michael Caine in the budget. There could be a dude, it could literally be a black knight with a talking horse, named Michael, the Black Paladin, or the Death Guard. It could be a lot of things. If you're doing sci-fi, yeah, you can make it a fighter. Or if it's cyberpunk, yeah, Cyberpunk or Shadowrun, Mr. Johnson wants you to get a prototype car back because it's been stolen by some dude that has no identity. You see what I mean? It can be all over the place. Same with Street Hawk, same with Airwolf, because the story elements are all the same, just presented in different ways. Okay? We could go on for a little while about how The Thing from Another World, The Stranger, John Carpenter's Thing, and No Exit are essentially all the same story. But that could take away some of the magic, And seriously speaking, all of these things can be used, and honestly, most of the stuff that we love in media is something else that's been iterated on. That's it. Just take a little thing. Ooh, man. Yeah. Land Before Time as Kids on Bikes. That would be an amazing campaign. If you ever run it, let me know. So yeah, The Thing is other people. Yeah. It's a lot of other people. There are just variations on a theme. And you can go back to the Greek comedies and tragedies. You can even pull from the Bible and the Torah and the Quran and the works of Buddha. I mean, there's so many things that you can pull. So you have got almost an endless treasure trove of story elements to put out there. Just pick like 3. Pick 3, shove them together, give them a reason. And the other stories that come out in your gaming campaign will just keep popping up based on the actions that your players take in trying to get through your story arc. I mean, real talk. See, I think I hit a nerve with you guys. As soon as I started bringing up old TV, you guys have just been going off, and this is great. If you want to run a run-shot horror campaign, look up Monsters, Tales from the Dark Side, or Tales from the Crypt. They're all there. These are all story elements that are there, but telling that story in your language, with your style, and allowing your players to add their spin with their actions is amazing. I recently saw a movie called The Blackening, and it is a slasher flick starring all black people who know all of the black people tropes. And man, it was so funny because it put them in situations where they had to forcefully do the things that people in horror movies do that everybody calls stupid. They tried skirting the tropes, and in a lot of ways it didn't work. It was really well put together. I really did like it. And but here's the most important thing. Okay, GMs, this right here is the most important thing I can tell you from GM to GM. When you're putting your story arc together, yes, that is the one that has the poster that says we can't all die first. And as a black dude who loves horror movies, the trope is the black person is always the first person killed. In Scream 2, we didn't even make it to the opening credits. I mean, it's a real thing. As I was saying, from GM to GM, okay, from me to all of you guys out there who are and will potentially be GMs, the story things that you're putting in there have got to be the ones that you like, okay? Because the GM is kind of, I say kind of, but not always, but kind of the leader of the gaming session, okay? Not the god, but the leader. And that means they're looking to you to set the pace of the story. Now, this gives you the power to be contagious with your enjoyment, okay? Now, sometimes they're going to do stuff that you enjoy, and sometimes they're going to do stuff that they enjoy that you don't like. It's just there, okay? I hate quipping for the sake of quipping. I really do. But players do it, okay? As a GM, I think it's my job to facilitate majorative fun at the table, okay? But when I put stuff out there, I try and create a story that I would enjoy experiencing, okay? This is really interesting. Now, when I'm putting together those things, I do take in mind the media literacy of today's players. All right? In the Discworld series, there is a character that I adore. His name is Rincewind, okay? And he is a can't even spell wizard because he only knows one spell and he can't learn any others until he recites the big spell that he knows. But the big spell is the spell to unravel all of creation and to start over. And it's always trying to be said. But his major thing is he does not want to be an adventurer. That is not what he wants to do. Okay? As soon as danger rears its head, he turns around and he runs the other way. And he always runs into a bigger or more interesting adventure. And he is so sick of it. Okay? But what I learned from that is when your characters run, make sure they run into something that might be just as harrowing. And I do, because I'm that kind of guy. I let them know later on in sessions what they missed out by running, what reward they could have gotten had they sat there. Again, right back to consequences. So with the media literacy nowadays, players will have a very hard time of fighting out of character knowledge, because they'll go, oh yeah, I know where this is going. And it's very important not to fall into the pit trap, the pitfall of trying to outthink your players. Okay, run your story. If they know what's coming up, cool. Guess what? Dice tell stories too. So they might miss the check to de-arm the trap. Now what? But they rolled a 3 on disarm trap. But they rolled a 2 on their perception check, so they don't see the spy in the corner looking to backstab one of them. The player might know it's there, but the character might be totally oblivious, especially since in most of the settings the characters haven't had 17 or more years of watching YouTube media breakdowns and watching Netflix and reading comics and seeing the Marvel movies. You get what I mean? Let's see what else we got. So yeah, all of those things are really, really, really big things to look out for as a GM. But next Wednesday, if I don't have to operate the forklift, we're going to do part 2 of this, which will cover setting a mood, setting a mood, and some of the tools that we can bring to the session to do that. So I hope a lot of this stuff has answered a lot of you guys' questions. Thank you guys for showing up. Special thanks to Roland, Xanathades, Nerdy Brew, Decker Bloodcloth. Thanks for showing up, man. We got to get a game of 40k in. Seriously. I've now got 2 2,000 point armies, so let's talk. Let's see. We've also got Vine Construct, Vision Vendor, M10. Hey, what's going on, GM? And a few other folks out there. Thank you for showing up today. And take a lot of the stuff that I've said, put together a game, run it, or the next time that you're actually playing a game as a player, look for some of these things. But what I recommend is think back on the games that you enjoy and see where all of these things have come up, because I'm not pulling this stuff out of my butt, guys. But with that, if y'all got any other questions, you can reach out and hit me up, okay, on... Wait, where are we at? Oh yeah, you guys can hit me up. Yep, my computer is just acting all funny. There we go. Y'all can hit me up. No, that's not the music I wanted. Yeah, see what I mean? My computer's just been like, bah! No, y'all can hit me up at backinthedeck@gmail.com. That's BACKINTHEDECK @gmail.com. You can also hit me up on Twitter at backinthedeck, Instagram, same place, same name. If you're on the Clock app, hit me up at BidP, that's BIDPY. And if you're still on Facebook, join Deckers on the Book. All right, and you guys can reach out to me over there too. I know someone is about to put up the invitation to the Discord, and please use it. It is not the Patreon only Discord and all that stuff, because I know way too many people that communicate on their Patreon only Discord that I can't afford to go on, so I'm not going to ask you to. However, if you can, here's all the information we got for donations and all that jazz, so please hit me up with all that stuff. And thank you guys for joining us for part 1 of the GMs Workshop. And I want you guys to take this stuff and have fun with it, okay? Play with it, have fun writing, design your secret societies, design your big bad guys, and all that other stuff. And timing. And remember, if anybody tells you that you can't like what you like because of the circumstances of your birth, be it race, religion, creed, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, your budget, or your neurospice. Haha, yeah, there we go. You just look at them and tell them to take any of those cards and put them back in the deck. This is Solar Gray, the Cinematic Sorcerer, saying thank you guys, and we will see you next time on the dark side of the room.